Everybody wants to have a soft, easy, comfortable life. That's not what life is about. So I'm grateful for the time that I spent in prison.
What does it take to rebuild your life and mindset when the world has counted you out? I'm Moshe Popak, and this is Common Denominator, where we explore the principles behind purpose, growth, and success, no matter your starting point. Today's guest, Shawn Balva, went from promising football player to serving 8 years in prison at 21 years old. But prison didn't break him. It sparked a spiritual awakening and entrepreneurial mindset. He taught himself Hebrew and Aramaic, studied Torah, and wrote his best-selling book, Conviction, during lockdown.
Just a feeling was like planted in my heart to just get on my knees and pray to God. And that was my first time ever.
Hi, Shawn, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thanks for having me.
So take us back to paint the picture a little bit about your childhood and the circumstances that led to your eventual arrest and time you spent in jail.
So I was born in Englewood, New Jersey. My father, he's from Israel. My mother, she was born in New York. Jewish family. We weren't religious. There was no talk about God, no spirituality, anything like that. Normal upbringing up until I was 5 years old. At the age of 5 years old, that's when my parents got divorced. Everybody moved to Las Vegas, even though they were divorced. They felt that the mother and the father should both be in my life. The divorce was something that was like very stressful, a lot of anxiety, trauma on my young soul. I didn't know how to deal with it at the time. So I started to act out. I started stealing, being a thief, even as a little kid. Started being disrespectful to my parents, to my brothers. I just didn't know how to deal with the divorce. Like I said, very traumatic. Thank God at the age of 8 years old, that's when I found something that I call my first love, which was football. I started watching Tom Brady and the Patriots on TV, and I felt like I want to be Tom Brady when I grow up one day. So I would look up on Google how tall I need to be a quarterback, what I need to do to become a quarterback. So I eventually started playing Pop Warner, and years went by. Football was something that took all the anxiety away from me, but at the same time, I became very good. I was very talented. I was very skilled, up until the point where I was looked at by ex-professional NFL quarterback Randall Cunningham. And he said to me, Shawn, you have a sincere opportunity to make it to the NFL one day. I'm a 10, 11-year-old kid. He's telling me you could really make it pro one day, and I want to train you. So I started training with Randall Cunningham. And then eventually, when it was time for me to pick a high school, when I was about 13, 14 years old, I went to a Catholic school called Bishop Gorman. And Bishop Gorman is one of the top 10 football schools in the country. All the good players go over there. It costs like $10,000, $15,000 a year for tuition. Me as a Jewish boy, it was also a little strange to go to a Catholic school, right? And this was something that my father was very upset about. My mother didn't really care because she wasn't.
Did you have identity of Judaism growing up?
So we didn't have any identity. Mm-hmm. There was, I had a bar mitzvah. Mm-hmm. When you're 13 years old, a boy goes in front of the Torah, reads the Torah. Other than that, we were eating completely non-kosher. There was no religion, no God, nothing at all. And that's a big part of my story going forward. I go to this Catholic school, and I'm playing very well. Like I said, top 10 football school in the country. Eventually, because I never worked on the things that I needed to heal as a kid, going through a divorce home, being angry, having all this anxiety, I never dealt with it, so it would come out in certain ways, even though I had this thing that I loved called football. So it got to a point where I'm 16 and a half. After a football game, some friends on the team come up to me and they say, Shawn, let's go out to a party. Let's go drink. Let's go smoke. And my family's very strict. I'm in a football team that's very strict. The coaches are strict. Still went out anyway. And I decided to take my first drink, smoke my first cigarette. And I was instantly hooked to that lifestyle. And I didn't know it yet, but that one mistake to go out to that party was the reason why later down the road, I ended up being incarcerated for 6 years.
I know probably at 16 years old, you still have this love of football, but
Yes.
what's actually going on? Are you being conflicted? Let's just take it the next 12 months, 24 months,
Yeah.
another party, another drinking, another situation. Are you missing practice? What's actually happening?
So that was another big issue, is that I was still playing well on the football field while becoming a drug addict. So it got to a point where a year later, let's say from 16 and a half to 17 and a half, the weekly drinking turned into daily drinking, daily smoking, to the point where going into my senior year, I was a full-blown drug addict. From the second that I woke up in the morning till I went to sleep at night, at practice, at the games, I'm high and I'm drunk all the time.
Hard drugs or is it marijuana?
Hard drugs.
Hard
I
drugs.
was on 5 different drugs. By the time I was 17 years old, I'm doing 5 different drugs every single day.
Where does that lead? So you're this basically drug addict at senior year, and you're in the wrong crowd. But is there? I mean, your football friends are probably are they the wrong crowd, or are they just a better crowd, and you're hanging out with both crowds at the time?
So first it started off where I was hanging around the wrong crowd, and then I became the wrong crowd. Going out to these parties, doing drugs, even selling drugs, started stealing also. I became like a small-time criminal while still playing football, and that's why I became the bad crowd.
When you were arrested, what was going on? What was the situation? What was going on in your mind at the time where you reached a point where the police, you were arrested and you were going to be sent to jail? Tell us a little bit about that story.
So I'll give you a quick background. So going into my senior year, I said a prayer to God, the first time ever that I decided to pray. I said, God, please give me a good football season and I'll stay away from the drugs completely. So the first 3 games of the season, I threw for 1,100 passing yards and 11 touchdowns. Quick cold turkey, all the drugs that I was on. And I felt like God was keeping up his end of the deal and I was keeping up my part. Then finally, we would play Friday night lights. So the Thursday before the Friday game, a friend comes up to me and he says to me, Shawn, let's go smoke some weed. And I didn't realize how bad my addiction was at the time and I couldn't resist. I went out. The following day, I was sent into the office for a random drug test, completely random. And a random drug test can never happen at all in your whole high school career. And it just so happened on that day. Following week, they kicked me off the football team. And if you can imagine, like I said earlier, football was my first love. I was devastated, heartbroken. It's still, even to this day, it's hard for me to watch a football game because it was that heartbreaking. Knowing what I know now today as an adult, I understand that you can pivot and pick yourself back up and you can always keep moving forward. There's always another door that can open as long as you work hard enough. I didn't know that at the time. So what I did was I went deeper down into the drug addiction and the criminal activity, the point where, like I said, I got back on those 5 drugs that I was doing every single day. And then not only that, I started selling drugs. Somebody came up to me one day, robbed me at gunpoint. So I decided to have my own protection. And now forget about football star. I'm a full-time criminal every single day, dropped out of school. Then eventually, when I was 20 years old, fast forward, I started robbing and burglarizing homes. One night, August 25th, 2015, I went into 7 convenience stores and I robbed everybody at gunpoint. And that's how I was arrested. On my way home, the cops picked me up, 10 cop cars, putting guns to my face, telling me to throw the keys out of the car.
Did you have an accomplice with you or was it just yourself?
Just myself.
And your mom, where's she in this conversation? I'm just saying your relationship with her and at the time.
My mom is my everything. She tried, and I tell mothers today who have struggling kids, don't ever stop trying. And that, just like my mom did, she tried everything. She called all my football coaches every single day, staying up all night, wondering if I'm going to come home, if I'm going to die from drunk driving or go to jail. But she never gave up on me.
I noticed that you take NBA players or things like that, right? What do they always talk about? The unconditional love that the mother has. Sometimes I'm guilty. Like my kids, and even though they're 18, 19, I'll go to bed because I got a full day. But I know my wife, she'll stay up 2, 3, 4 in the morning making sure they get home and make sure.
Yes.
So I understand that. That's really beautiful. So you don't have money for an attorney, for a lawyer. So the state gives you an attorney.
Also, my grandmother.
Right.
You know, my mom and my grandmother, they saw the light in me, even though I looked so dark on the outside at that time. My grandmother paid like $100,000 for a lawyer.
Wow.
She put up her house as a surety when they put me on an ankle monitor on bail. Yeah, we fought. I was facing, at that point, for 7 armed robberies, I was facing 20, 30, 40 years in prison.
Was it a plea deal or you ended up going to trial?
So I ended up taking a plea deal because we made a whole argument that I come from a good family, that, you know, I was a football star. The judge had to decide between 7 and 11 years in prison. Because I had a gun in my case, it was a mandatory 7 years in jail.
And you ended up sitting where in jail originally?
So originally I was in a Las Vegas jail. Then I went to a California prison called Victorville, one of the most dangerous prisons in America. Every single gang possible is over there. And then eventually, because I became religious in prison, Orthodox Jewish, I ended up moving to a prison called Otisville in upstate New York. And this is where there's a lot of Jewish inmates sitting in prison over there, and where I found God and started learning.
That time, when you talked about that prayer before football season, what was going on in your mind? Like, why was it, let me reach out. I've never seen it before in my life. Let me reach out to something greater than myself and pray to him or universe or God. Do you recall what was it? Because you've never done it before.
Never.
But what was it that was inside of you that said, you know what? I want to reach out to something greater?
So I can't really explain where it came from, but what I can tell you is that I feel like I always felt very spiritual. And when I started veering off the right path, I always felt so bad about everything that I was doing. Every time that I would take a drug or steal from somebody or do something that I wasn't supposed to do, I felt something inside telling me stop, because that's not who I am and that's not how I was raised. So going into my senior year, I really can't explain where it came from, but just a feeling was like planted in my heart to just get on my knees and pray to God. And that was my first time ever. And then after that prayer, I saw God everywhere after that for the next 2 years. I felt him. I felt that feeling every time that I did something wrong. Strong. I felt God so strongly, but I would numb it with all the drugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure your mom and grandmother were extremely devastated the day you were incarcerated, right? That day was probably really tough. What was the day-to-day living for you in prison? What was kind of your schedule? First month, maybe it changed after a year, but you probably realized, right?
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind at the time, day one?
So day one, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. 21 years old, because I was out on bail up until I was 21. You see all these guys, when you walk in, everybody's banging on the door in their cells. You have every single, like I said, gang possible, blacks, whites, Mexicans, neo-Nazis. Everybody has tattoos all over their face. I was terrified. But I realized after a couple days that I was there, these are just regular people. These are people too. And they took to me because I respected them. I never tried to be somebody I wasn't. I told everybody that I was Jewish, and they respected me. And nobody ever had an issue with me my whole time. I did have one issue that I could share with you. Sure. Thank God I played football growing up, because it taught me about discipline, and it taught me about fighting, and it taught me about consistency and all these good things that come from football. And I transferred that to prison. So I got on a schedule. I would work out every single day. I would pray every single day, wake up at the same time, go to sleep at the same time, meditate, read all these knowledgeable books, pray. Prison for me was, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't as bad as it seems.
What was the physical condition of the prison? The bed, the food, compared to what you had outside of prison, right? Once you switch your mind, you're like, I'm here for a bunch of years, and I got to make the best of this. Was it okay? Because I know I remember reading the cost. I don't know if it's a privately run prison. It's about $100,000 a year
per inmate.
Per inmate.
Yep.
I remember reading that, and I was like, that seems like a lot of money.
Yep.
I don't know if that translates to the
They
services
don't
that you
feed us
get.
as good as 100,000 a year.
Right.
That's for sure.
They probably don't. They probably don't.
Yeah.
But you were going to share a story because I know you spent time in solitary confinement.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So I'll share one story with you where I was technically beat up in prison. That's when I moved from a California prison to a New York prison because of getting beat up. So I was part of a program called Brave. It was about helping young kids in prison change their attitude so that their actions would change. The prison system realized that most of the people that were doing the stabbings and putting in the work, as they call, were these kids 32 and under. So I was part of this program to help change our minds because we were all crazy at the time. The program was from 7:30 to 10:30 every single day, Monday through Friday. In the unit that we had the program, there's TVs, like 10 TVs all over the unit. And we were told during programming hours, don't turn on the TVs. Don't turn on the TVs and don't play cards. So all the guys were playing cards, and the lady who ran the program turned off all the TVs. And one thing you don't do in prison is disrespect the inmates. Inmates don't take disrespect from another inmate, and they don't take disrespect from the cops. It doesn't matter to them. So they all got together, all the blacks, whites, and Mexicans, and they said, tomorrow morning for programming, we're boycotting this program. We're all walking outside. Following morning comes around, everybody walked outside. I was the only person who stayed in. I felt in my heart that it was the wrong thing to do, that we would all get in trouble, and it was pointless. They told us not to play cards, and we broke the rules. So they locked the whole prison down for a week, solitary confinement, 24 hours a day. You don't get out, no showers, anything. When we were let off of the lockdown, I was surrounded by all the inmates, and they wanted to beat me up for not following suit. They said that, when we go against the cops, you have to follow us, no matter if it's nonsense or not. So I was trying to argue my case with them. They wanted to beat me up. When they beat you up in prison, they put boots on, they stomp your head in, they can send you to the hospital half dead. But they said to me, because you're a 21-year-old prison rookie, we're just going to give you a discipline. So discipline is I had to hold my hands up for 23 seconds. 2 guys punch me in the stomach as hard as they can. After that, I realized, this is not a safe environment for me anymore. I mean, it was never really that safe. I want to leave. So I asked to transfer to New York, where all the Jews were at. And, thank God I got out of that mess.
You mentioned prayer. Mm-hmm. How long after you were in prison did you begin a routine of prayer?
As soon as I got there. As soon as I got there, because I was so terrified when I first got there. I didn't know what to think. You see all these prison shows today show the craziest things that you could possibly think of. And that's all that was on my mind when I was there. Getting beat up or getting abused, whatever it could possibly be. So I would go into my cell when nobody's there. Sometimes I would cry, and I would just pray to God. Please, God, I'm not strong enough for this. I'm just a 21-year-old kid. Give me strength to get through this time and protect me.
And did you have withdrawal?
So surprisingly not. I did not have any withdrawals. The only thing that I can think of is maybe I had a lot of adrenaline in my system going into the prison system, being scared. Also, my whole life, I've been very healthy. I only drink water, a gallon of water a day, non-processed foods. That's the only thing I could think of. I didn't have withdrawals.
You probably got that discipline from training for the football.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say the key difference between now transferring to Otisville, the conditions there compared to where you were before?
So in California, it's what you see, everybody sees on TV, barbed wire, dirt, just looks very dark and depressing. When I moved to New York, it was a whole different vibe. They had grass, flowers, and it was just a way nicer prison.
Minimum security.
Same medium. It was still medium. I was in the high security first in Las Vegas. Then I went down to medium in California and New York. But it was just much better conditions. In California, too, there's a lot of politics. I don't know if you're familiar with the politics with the whites, blacks, Mexicans, the Chinese, Native Americans. Where you
in other words, the inmates, there's a divide.
You have to be a part of somebody. Everybody does. You can't just be solo. So if there's a riot, you have to jump in with your race that you're with. And I was with the whites. New York didn't have those politics. It was solo.
Would you see fights in New York or?
For sure.
Yeah.
There's fights all the time in prison, randomly.
Right.
Yep.
And how many inmates were in Otisville?
There was about 600 inmates when I was there.
That's a federal prison.
Federal prison. Yep.
So from a place where at 17 was the first time you said the first prayer to God, how has that shaped you as a person? And who are those relationships and as far as your mentors? And why is that super important to you today?
You know, just growing up with coaches, also not really having a father figure growing up, and then growing up with coaches who were my father figure, it was very important for me, especially in a place like prison. So when I got there, my mentors were usually these older gentlemen. There was a couple rabbis that were my mentors too, who were also incarcerated. And I just really spoke to anybody who would give me wisdom and who wouldn't BS me, you know, who would tell me straight to my face the real uncut version of who I need to be. I had a bunch of really good guys over there who would mentor me. I never really had friends over there, especially people my age in their 20s and 30s. There were a lot of knuckleheads. So I would talk to the older guys who spent 20, 30 years in prison, and there's so much wisdom and knowledge over there.
Is it mainly financial crimes or is it physical altercations and things like that for the inmates in Otisville?
So the inmates in Otisville, there's a camp where that's all financial crimes. The medium where I was at, you had a mix of everything.
So let's fast forward to today. Are you in touch with any of your old inmates?
I'm not allowed to be in touch because I'm on federal probation now. I can't talk to anybody who's also a felon. So all those mentors, all my friends that I had over there, I haven't been able to be in touch with them, which is kind of sad because a lot of these people helped shape who I am today. But hopefully one day I'd be happy to speak with them.
How long are you on probation? How long is the time?
5 years probation.
There's a probation officer that you got to speak to. Is it daily, weekly, monthly?
My probation officer, she comes to my house maybe once a month. I have to take drug testing. I have to do community service hours, obviously to stay out of trouble. No drinking, no drugs, which is good. I've been clean for a long time.
So you're on probation, and what is your weekly, daily activities? What does it look like today?
So everything I did in prison, I transferred out to here. Still wake up early, still work out every single day, still pray every day, still learn Torah, and now I work.
What are you working in now?
So I'm a salesperson, work for a company out here in Florida. And also on the side, I go around the whole country speaking, sharing my story, trying to do everything I can to make sure that kids get on the right path.
What's the feedback you get from the youth?
So the youth love it.
Right.
And I love to do it too, because when I go and speak to them, I tell them that I'm you.
Yeah.
I don't come in there as an authority, as a rabbi, a teacher, or try to be looking down at them. I share with them that I'm literally you 10 years ago if you don't get your act together. It's great because they need somebody to connect to. They're lacking a lot of relatability today. They're lacking healthy role models that they could look up to. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to help.
Yeah, I think definitely if they don't have religion, you could probably connect a lot with sports. I say sports is the other religion. You talk to them about sports, ways that you can really connect with people.
For sure.
And tell us about your book. What's the name of your book?
So my book is Conviction. It's called Conviction. It was going to be Convict to Conviction, the name of the book, but we put it together. Also during COVID, we were on solitary confinement. I wrote this whole book in 5 days. I went all the way to the beginning of my life, shared about my upbringing, shared about all the things that I struggled with as a teenager, football, drugs, and how I eventually went to prison. And I share some insight about how to, have faith in God and how to not only just survive, but to thrive even in the worst conditions possible. And I just wanted to make a book for people to just read like a real story, because there's a lot of stuff out there that, and I'm guilty of it too, of not being completely authentic, but we lack authenticity. I wanted to give people something real.
If for your age, you're very open. I'm sure your experiences How did solitary confinement, those 6 months, how'd that shape you? What would you say came out of that?
We were told that we were going to go on solitary confinement when COVID hit. They locked down every single prisoner in America for 6 months. For the first 3 months, if you can imagine what it is to be in an 8 by 11 foot cell, I was completely losing my mind. And I've been praying to God. I've been trying to get closer to God the last 3-4 years that I was in prison. I couldn't understand why I was here in solitary confinement, why I was suffering so badly. I couldn't move. They let you out to shower 3 days a week. I couldn't figure out why I'm going through this pain. So eventually, I prayed to God one night when we were 3 months in. I said, God, I was crying, faced my door. I didn't want my roommate to see me. Crying, praying to God, God, I can't do this anymore. This is too painful. I can't do another hour in here. Please give me strength. Please give me good thoughts. So the following day, it was a Saturday, I sat down after walking back and forth like I usually did in the cell. And I had 2 beautiful thoughts, which I used. It shaped me for today too. And the first thought was that I'm exactly where God wants me to be. If he wants me in this prison cell, I'll be in this prison cell. This is what faith is, to understand that if you believe in God, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And the second thought that I had was that I always had expectation that we were going to get off of that lockdown. And when it never happened, I was completely devastated. So I realized we can't expect anything in the future other than what God has planned for us. And if we think otherwise, we're just human beings. If we think otherwise, like we can create the world, we're devastated when it doesn't go our way. There's so many things that don't go our way.
What would you say, Shawn? What would you say something that you're deeply grateful for?
I'm grateful for a lot of things, but the one thing I'm grateful for is all the pain that I went through. Everybody wants to have a soft, easy, comfortable life. They want to make things just comfortable for themselves. That's not what life is about. So I'm grateful for the time that I spent in prison, because it gave me the armor that I need to be a man in life today. And it's a hard life.
Well, I really appreciate that, Shawn.
For sure.
It's really been great, eye-opening. You've experienced firsthand real rock bottom.
For sure.
So I always say, you jump out of the basement window, how high can you go from there? So I'm sure you have great things to come. Wish you all the best. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you haven't already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode, and it helps us continue to bring you meaningful conversations that make a difference. Thank you for being part of our growing community. We couldn't do this without you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.